I think just start small. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. Just taking a small step is a big deal, and that may be just practicing empathy or just practicing a little more gratitude.
You're listening to the Mindful Mama podcast, episode number 281. Today we're talking about what do dads need with Jason Kreidman. Welcome to the Mindful Mama podcast, now with over 1 million downloads. Here it's about becoming a less irritable, more joyful parent. At Mindful Mama, we know that you cannot give what you do not have, and when you've calm and peace within, then you can give it to your children. I'm your host, Hunter Clarke-FIELDS, Mindful Mama Mentor. I help smart, thoughtful parents stay calm so they can have strong, connected relationships with their children. I've been practicing mindfulness for over 20 years. I'm the creator of Mindful Parenting, and I'm the author of Raising Good Humans, a mindful guide to breaking the cycle of reactive parenting and raising kind, confident kids. Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here today. If you're new, a very special welcome to you. So glad to connect with you today. And if you are a longtime listener, I'm so glad to be back and hanging with you, my friend. This is a very special episode for the dads and the moms. It's for everyone, but especially for the dads. I want to talk to the dads, give the dads some stuff for Father's Day. To celebrate Father's Day this year is kind of our special episode for that. And you're definitely going to enjoy this episode. In just a moment, I'm going to be sitting down with Jason Kreidman, founder of Dad University, an educational company dedicated to helping dads gain confidence in their parenting. And we are going to be talking about how you, if you are a partner to a dad, can encourage dads to be more involved and take a more active role in parenting. We're going to be talking about how dads can really get engaged. And if you're a mom married or partnered with a dad, how can you help get your husband engaged? So listen for some important takeaways. We're going to talk about really how to parent with efficacy, like how to be effective, how to be efficient, and how to be empathetic. And then, we're going to talk about actually what is more effective. Is keeping score or showing gratitude more effective? It's really interesting to think about that. And I want you to listen for starting small and just focusing on practicing one thing at a time. So there is so much to take away here. I'm so glad that you're here to dive into this. And of course, you can see clips of this episode as well as short teaching sessions from me over at our Mindful Mama Mentor YouTube channel. Of course, make sure you subscribe so we can grow this baby little channel, get it growing. And just a quick announcement that if you are a teacher, a therapist, or a parent coach, we may, when this airs, have a couple spots open still in the 2021 Mindful Parenting Teacher Certification Program. And this is to certify you to teach the 8 modules of mindful parenting in your community. People are teaching it with friends at schools. They're teaching it with community groups. It's really, really exciting. And they become kind of part of our whole big, wide team here, which is so cool. So if you want to learn more about that opportunity to teach mindful parenting, go to mindfulparentingcourse.com/teach. We'll be starting in September, but we enroll now because a lot of you may have a lot of similar experience to mindful parenting, but you haven't gone through the mindful parenting course and membership yourself. So you get your own membership. We get you through your first round of mindful parenting, and then we go into the teacher training in September. So if you think that might be for you, you might want to grab one of those last spots. If there are any left as of this airing, go to mindfulparentingcourse.com/teach. All right, let's dive into this awesome episode. Join me at the table as I talk to Jason Kreidman. Thanks so much for coming on the Mindful Mama podcast, Jason.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you. You run Dad University, right? So I'm really curious about this. What I'm curious about with Dad University is I'm curious about your own father and your own parenting. And did you perceive that there was something did you perceive that there was something missing there that you didn't get from your own dad? I'm just curious about that.
Actually, no.
Yeah.
I would consider what I had an excellent upbringing. I really close family, siblings. My parents were together for years. My mom had passed away about 11 or so years ago, and if anything, she was sort of the driver of the parenting. Using a lot of these techniques and such, and so I learned a tremendous amount just by osmosis of watching her. And then my dad, who was very supportive and involved. And what was interesting was as I became a parent, it felt like none of that mattered.
Yeah.
um, I guess I had an advantage that I had felt like I had a good foundation, but the truth is that I still didn't know what to do. I was stressed and overwhelmed and had anxiety about my children. And so it's not like the fact that I felt like I was parented well, like tremendously prepared me to have my own children, because it was very situational. Time is a little different, like when they grew up or when I grew up and when they're growing up. So, I look back at my childhood very fondly, but I don't know. I guess it's hard because I don't know the alternative.
Would you
But
think
in the end, no, go ahead.
do you think they were like, would you say they were like authoritarian? Were they permissive? Kind of what was their style? So they had,
No, it was, it, it was a combination. I would say my dad was a little more authoritarian, but not really. I mean, they were both authoritative. My mom was about mindfulness, and my mom was a, relationship coach and counselor, and very, very successful person in that field. And so I grew up sort of with the motivational, mindset. I was, listening to Tony Robbins in 7th and 8th grade. And,
oh my gosh.
Funny story was I had a car when I was, 16, and it was a couple of years after I had gotten my car, and I had Tony Robbins cassette tapes in the trunk. And my car got broken into and everything got taken. I mean, like the stereo ripped out, just everything. And they left the Tony Robbins tapes. And I thought, that's interesting. That would have been something I thought that person needed. But so even from a very early age, I was into mindfulness. I was into motivation. I was into just seeking. So I don't know when I became a parent, if like there was anything specific that I felt like missing, that I was like, okay, my dad didn't do that, so I better learn this. I think it was just generally as a whole, to really understand techniques and communication and some of these things, and just really honing in on my skills. So if anything, maybe my parents gave me the curiosity, and that idea to be a seeker. Maybe that's what they gave me, and but also, some humility to know that, like, I didn't know what I was doing, even though I had all this background. It still didn't matter, even to this day with all the stuff I am doing and there's still so much, and I make mistakes and I acknowledge that. And so I think it's just, I mean, I love my parents, but I wasn't all ready for it. I wasn't ready for parenting.
I think it's like a shock to the system no matter what. But I also have to say, Jason, that's like so California. Like we talked about you being from California.
Which part?
Your mom being in a relationship person and listening to Tony Robbins when you're like 7th grade. Yeah. It's like so great. I love that. I love you, California.
Yeah, there definitely was, like, the self-improvement part was big. I will say though, it's interesting but my surroundings weren't. I mean, like none of my friends were listening to this or that understood it. So like it's interesting that the perception, obviously, like we were like all of us, teenagers going to a Tony Robbins seminar.
That was not happening.
No. I mean, I think I was a little unique in that there wasn't a lot of my peers who were interested in that, maybe I was hanging with the wrong crowd, but, so yeah, but I'll take it. I mean, California, I'm a proud Californian. So, yeah.
No, I think it's great. So what compelled you to come? You were struggling as yourself as a dad, and that you had some learning to do for yourself as a dad, and that was probably like a big incentive for you to
Yeah.
create the Dad University. What do you see as some of the what like for the dads who are a little more like unaware at this point? What do you see as some of the mistakes and the challenges, the mistakes that dads are making, and they may not even be aware of?
Well, it's interesting that a majority of at least the people who are like, because my biggest platform is YouTube. And so
Mhm.
a lot of the crowd is younger.
Mhm.
So it's first time dads, it's, brand new, young, in a more younger people that are having the children that are finding me. A lot of what they're interested in is just very tactical. I mean, it's like, how
Mm.
do you change a baby? How do you
Mm.
burp a baby? How do you, like they're not, and especially when somebody's a new dad, they're not thinking about parenting and, the techniques of parenting. So I kind of get them in early, and they listen to the material then with the idea that, as they progress and their children get a little older, they'll then kind of be in that mindset that like, oh, I should seek some more information out. So the majority of challenges that I have with that they ask about are the transitions. It's the transition from going, which I used to have this as my podcast name, but going from a dude to a dad. It's like they're a single guy. They either get married or have a relationship. They then have a child. That's quite a drastic change, and all of the things that come with that. So that's a lot of what I focus on is like, how do you get through that change? How do you understand the changes that are happening to you, to your partner? So I don't focus a ton on the tactical, like, well, if your baby's doing this, what do you do? Or if, a lot of what I talk about is how, as a person, can you get through these challenges and learn? And, because that was my, 0 to hero journey. I was stressed and overworked and anxiety, and I was a yeller, and I kind of just worked really hard to change those things and to evolve, to hopefully be a better father as a result of it.
How did you slow down or stop your yelling?
I just learned that it wasn't that effective. That was probably
Truly.
the biggest thing. My career was as, primarily before this, my career as an optimizer. I do optimizing a website or optimizing online. And so as a marketer, I'm always looking for more efficient and effective ways of doing things. And I kind of did the same thing with parenting. I was yelling and getting upset and saying, like, this isn't working. Like, why do I keep doing this? And my wife is a great communicator, and so would approach me in a very positive way. The thing she'd always say is like, how's that working for you? And we're able to communicate like that. And I think realizing that it wasn't working, I wasn't getting the results that I wanted, and figuring out, hey, that's not going to be that great for my kids. And so, yeah, I learned to meditate more, practice gratitude, breathing techniques. There's a lot. I'm still high strung, no question. I mean, you can, I'm sure, gather that, but my energy level's high. But at the same time, when I deal with them, it's different, and it's much different. And, and I think as the chaos of like baby and toddlerism transitioned and I was able to communicate with them, I just learned more efficient and effective ways of doing it.
Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break. If you're anything like me, you may be curious about the wellness properties of CBD, but not wanting to just like buy some random one off a huge mass market retailer. So that's why I'm thrilled that Mission Farm CBD is a sponsor of the Mindful Mama podcast. Mission Farm CBD creates products that help you feel good again. They have this amazing icy hot Relieve CBD joint and muscle gel, for instance. It blocks pain in joints and muscles, taking you from the sidelines to back in the game. They also have roll-on, they have CBD for pets, and what I've been using the CBD for is that it really calms stress and helps sleep. So it's really soothing and calming at the end of the night for me, and these muscle relieving effects, my father actually has been enjoying those amazingly. So all of this is amazing, but what's so great about Mission Farm CBD is that it's all made on a wonderful small farm in Oregon. Their products are handcrafted from organically farmed hemp in Central Oregon. It's like a 4-acre farm. They've got goats there. So not only are you boosting your overall well-being, you're supporting a small American business and farmers, which is so great. And they also create the CBD products and then they infuse them with wonderful organic essential oils. So even their CBD soaps are made with minimal ingredients, all of which you can pronounce, and then these beautiful essential oils. And another lovely product they have is the CBD mints. Oh my gosh, there's so much, right? I really suggest you try the CBD joint and muscle gel and try the CBD mints. And then if you want to have some luxurious, lovely self-care time, get yourself a CBD bath soak. Mission Farms really wants you to feel good again all naturally. So they're passing along a special deal of 25% off your first order. So head on over to missionfarmscbd.com and use the code HUNTER at checkout. That's Mission Farms, MISSION, farmscbd.com, and use the code HUNTER at checkout. And you can find that missionfarmscbd.com link right in the notes wherever you're listening to this. Even on your phone, you can just click over. You'll see where it says notes somewhere. Click on notes, find that link. And don't forget to use the code HUNTER at checkout for 25% off. I think what you're kind of pointing to here is the idea, and I love the idea of like approaching it that from an efficiency angle, because it's so true that yelling is like completely counterproductive. It is not helpful at all. But I love the idea of looking at what are you bringing to the table? Rather than like, okay, like what's wrong with these kids? Like, what am I bringing to the table? And what's this energy that I'm bringing to the table? Would you say that's something that I'm imagining, the dads who are not quite so clued in yet, who may say like, it's these kids, they're driving me crazy. I got to figure out how to like fix them and whatnot. And what you're pointing to is like, well, what am I bringing? Right. And is this one of the shifts and perspectives that you invite dads into?
Yeah, it's probably the biggest shift. I use the word empathy, like, in that alone of like looking at it from the other person's perspective and, like, what are they going through and what are they dealing with? When I started to shift and look at things from my children's perspective, from my wife's perspective, it completely changed how I deal with everything. And also taking responsibility for myself and my actions and my feelings and my emotions. And everything is about ourselves. And so as I dive in deeper and do this more, it just becomes so apparent of like, life is a choice, and I was giving an example. Actually, I was talking with my assistant about a response that I got from a situation where the person was so upset at the situation at hand that it wasn't even, you could, if you knew this and you take a step back, you could see that this had nothing to do with me. Now, in my old world of my own mind, I would have come back at this person, yelled back at them, had an argument. And instead I just said, wow, I'm really sorry that upset you. That was not my intention. How can we fix this? So like, that's so much better for me, And so when I realized that all of this was just easier for me to deal with, as an optimizer and efficiency, I'm like, oh, wow, I don't have to have that anger in me. I don't have to have the angst. And it's simply a matter of just me taking responsibility for the fact that maybe I did say something that was not okay, or maybe this person's going through something. And it's just a different approach in general. And so I think, what you were saying, it's like, how do I show up for my children? My children acting crazy and being loud, I can decide, is that going to bother me? Or do I know that the children either need something or they're in a situation, I can look at it differently now. And I wasn't able to do that before. I just wasn't, and I didn't have that capability. And after practice, it's like a superpower.
What you're describing takes a lot of self-awareness, right? It takes us getting out of that stress response, out of that fight, flight, or freeze, train that's going 90 miles an hour in one direction, and taking a step back into perspective, and I love this idea of taking responsibility. And you said that life is a choice. And I think that is true in some circumstances, but is not true for a lot of people. I think that for a lot of people, life is autopilot. Life is not a choice. There's no there are no conscious choices that are being made. It's just autopilot, autopilot, autopilot. And I'm acting on habit. I'm acting on what I've been conditioned to act on. So, now I know for you, you mentioned meditation, so I know that's in there in the soup for you, like for getting into this place of self-awareness. How do you invite dads to be able to step back into that place of self-awareness? Because that seems to me to be the key to taking responsibility, to seeing from the other person's point of view.
Yeah, people make decisions based on fear and greed. And I find that, with men, parenting isn't often painful enough. And I say that, but it is, until they get to a certain point. And so where I'm going with this is that it's often difficult to convince somebody to be self-aware.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's not, they have to want it. They have to feel like there's something better on the other side. So my job is to either say, hey, listen, it's going to be easier for you. And that's the greed part. Or, hey, you're going to probably screw up your kids. There's a fear part. There's different elements of how they're making decisions. And obviously everybody makes decisions in a different way. But oftentimes I find that men are sort of numb to all of this because it's not painful enough. Or they're not seeing the reward enough. Like, okay, cool. Like there's a baby there, but it's not that rewarding for me. So like, I'm just saying what might go through their head. Like, I don't need to pay that much attention to it. Then there are other men who are like, oh, wow. I spend every minute I can with this child and I do as much as I can. So it is hard to convince men that this is important. It just is,
Yeah. I know.
I make a video on empathy. It doesn't do very well. I make a video about gratitude. It doesn't do very well. I don't care. I think it's important information. So I'm not counting the views, but if I go back and I look at the analytics, they don't care about those subjects. Whereas I say, hey, how to be more intimate with your wife? Oh, you better believe they'll click on that. Or if I say, hey, how to get your toddler to not do a tantrum, they'll click on that because it's more painful. And so it's these triggers, these triggers are what cause people to take action. So I'm learning a ton too of just, what triggers people and what really motivates them, to want to learn. And I have found that it's very difficult to try to convince someone. So I don't know that I do a lot of convincing. I kind of put the information out there and say, hey, listen, I think this is valuable. I think it would be valuable for you. If you were interested, check it out. If you're not, then, I'm not going to beg.
Yeah. This is so interesting because I'm thinking about there's so many women in the mindful parenting membership, and they're one of the biggest frustrations is like, I want to get my partner on board. Like, I don't want to be using threats. I don't want to be spanking. I don't want to be doing all those things. I want to be using this skillful communication. I want to be, have a better relationship with my kids. And then my partner's going and saying, if you don't do this right now,
Right.
you gotta go to your room and I'm gonna, whatever. And so they're worried that that's like undermining this work that they're doing. And
Mhm.
on one hand, I totally understand that because we're so much better when we work as a team. But on the other hand, I feel like, well, what are you going to do? You can do what he does, which is not as skillful, even you know what I mean? Like a lot of
Mhm.
times, what happens is the partner or the husband has to say, "Oh wow, look, those kids are responding to you a lot better than they're responding to me," and then they start to change things. So,
Yeah.
um, but I think it's really interesting, this idea that parenting isn't painful enough for men, that they have to want it. Like there's like how, there's what is that motivating factor? Um, it isn't painful enough. So what are some of the pain points that you tell men to watch out for in their future, that if they
Well,
follow an unskillful path?
yeah. Well, the discipline part of, I think men do have a fear of their child being like a not a good member of society. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a real fear that
Yeah.
men say. And so like, that's a common thing where well, I just don't want my child to be a delinquent. I don't want them to go to jail. I don't want them to get in trouble. So, I don't like to market by fear. It's not like,
Mhm.
I don't like that idea.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, I definitely though go down. There are some paths to go down about women encouraging their men, or how they can encourage them to be more involved and to take more of an active role. And so, I mean, we can talk about some of those things because I think
Let's
that's
go
that's
there.
that that I think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
helpful.
that sounds important.
Um, I would say so. There's a couple. One of them is positive reinforcement.
Mhm.
So, as with children, positive reinforcement and showing that gratitude is powerful. So when the husband does something, even if it is small and doesn't, quote, deserve to be recognized in some people's eyes, recognizing it because you want that behavior to happen again
Mm,
is worth it. So, oh, you know what, honey, thank you so much for picking the kids up at school today. That was just really, really helpful.
great.
Instead of, well, he should be picking up the kids. I do it 4 times a week. He only does it 1 time a week. Like
Mm,
having that sort of gratitude mindset of like reinforcing it and saying, you know what, or thank you so much for doing this, or and like I said, so much of the time we just say, well, they should do that. I spend more time like there's this like balance and like keeping score,
yeah.
and you got to cut that out. Like a man is not going to respond from whining, complaining. Either do women. I mean, a woman doesn't want to hear the man complaining. It's not an attractive thing. None
Mhm.
of us want to hear it. So complaints are probably the worst thing that you could do. Complaining to your man about how he's not doing something is not going to get him to want to do something for you. It's the last thing. He's going to be like, forget it. I don't want to do this. So I think that showing that gratitude and the positive reinforcement. The other I find, and I've been on some podcasts with women, and some agree, some don't, is there's more than one way to do something.
Mhm.
And, whether it is getting the child dressed, whether it is doing the dishwasher, doesn't matter what it is, there is your way, and then there's another person's way. And it's not always perfect. It's not always the same. If the man or your partner or whatever is contributing in his way, reinforce that. So the
Mm,
idea is like, understand that there is more than one way to do it. In other words, I have found situations where a guy will come to me and be like, listen, my wife criticized me because I'm not even doing this right. Or it's not the way, like it makes me not want to do it.
Yeah.
And the fact that, I'll just give it, this is a minimal example, but like doing the dishwasher, and it's like, you don't put the things right. Like, this is the way that it needs to be. You put the dishes here, like, he's doing it. He's doing the dishwasher. And we do the same thing with our kids.
Yeah.
I don't want to criticize my child doing the dishwasher. They're doing the dishwasher. Like, I just don't want to criticize them for that. So I think men often feel like the skill or the contribution they're making as it relates to the children and home isn't good enough, or isn't up to her standards in a way. And sometimes that's vice versa, but I think that's another one. So, the positive reinforcement, the gratitude, those are really big.
Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break. When it comes to beauty products and makeup and what I put on my skin, I am incredibly selective and picky about it, which is why I am so thrilled that Thrive Cosmetics is a sponsor of the Mindful Mama podcast. They're amazing because they're made with clean, high-performing, skin-loving ingredients. They're formulated without parabens, without sulfates, without phthalates. They never test on animals. They're Leaping Bunny and PETA certified, 100% vegan and cruelty-free. And they have this bigger than beauty cause, this bold mission, which is amazing. So every product purchased, Thrive Cosmetics donates to help women thrive, like women emerging from homelessness, surviving domestic abuse, fighting cancer, and more. Those reasons are amazing, but they're amazing because they're amazing products too. So I'm not really into like a heavy load of makeup, but I like kind of a natural look. So Thrive Cosmetics, the products are so easy to use and they're such high quality. So I'm going to tell you the products like I'm completely obsessed with and I use practically every single day. So I'm totally obsessed with the Liquid Lash Extensions mascara. I kind of thought all mascaras were the same and kind of annoying, and this mascara is amazing. It's so easy to use. It's so good. I will never use another mascara again. It is so good. And I use that with the Brilliant Eye Brightener, mauve color, and it has this like shimmer to it. Goes on super easily, and it just makes my eyes like much prettier. It's just, I don't know how to describe it. And then they also have this instant brow eyebrow gel, right? And so it's kind of like mascara for your eyebrows, but it's really great. Like, it just looks so natural and makes them just darker, and they're really incredible products. So yes, I'm thrilled that they're a sponsor for all of those different reasons, and the products are amazing. I love everything about Thrive Cosmetics. Their products are the best I've ever used, and their bigger than beauty mission is truly inspiring. Like, you can do something that's good for you and also give back to the world at the same time. You are going to love them as much as I do. So visit thrivecosmetics.com/hunter. When you use that coupon code, it supports the Mindful Mama podcast too. So that's a 3-in-1. thrivecosmetics.com/hunter for 15% off your first order. This is an exclusive offer that you can only get here. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/hunter. You can find that link right in the show notes. Wherever you're listening to this, like, look at your phone and you'll see a place where there's notes. Scroll down a bit, you'll find that link for 15% off your first order. thrivecosmetics.com/hunter. I like that you say that, like, that there's more than one way to do something, because I think that's true. And also that, if you have a certain style of interacting with your kids, it's okay for your partner to have a different style of interacting with your kids. And kids are resilient and they're flexible and they learn people. Like, people are good at learning people. And so they are going to learn, like, this works with dad, this works with mom. And I think that's so important. I kind of look at like that idea of like the united front in some ways as like one of the biggest, like most annoying things that United States pediatricians have foisted upon us generation of parents, because The truth is we're not always like it's first of all, it's like a war metaphor, which is like dumb. I don't think war metaphors should be applied to parenting. I'm sorry. Like it's not that they're not battles. They're not, we don't have to have a united front. But also like we're not always we don't feel the same way as each other all the time. Like, and if we then pretend to be falsely united, then we're like we're lying, right? And our kids can kind of see through that if we're not
So
really. Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah, I'd like to argue it.
Sure. Yeah. Let's go
Yeah.
there.
So agreed that, lying or feel like, you don't want to give up your point of view and give up like your opinion, and you should obviously be heard. What I do find though is, at least from the perspective when I talk with a lot of guys, is, and I just put out a video about this, about like that she wants to feel supported. Mm-hmm. So not supporting her is not a good idea. So that's, and so that's where the united front sometimes is valuable. And when you have issue with what's being done or what's being said, you don't have to argue that point in front of the children. In other words, she's saying, hey, I don't want this going on. I don't want this happening. And you totally, because this happens with my wife and I. We have like a lot of things we agree on, but there are differences with how we approach. She's much more fun and like, relaxed about things. And like, but the kids, I've learned to appreciate that. I'm the rule guy. I'm the regimented. I'm the, bedtime and all, and she's not as much. And so, but what happens is like, I'm not going to argue with her about something in front of them that she's trying to put forth. So in other words, I might, afterwards say, hey, you know what, honey, I just wanted to talk about that situation. I disagree with it, And so I still get my voice out. I still get opinionated, but what happens is I have found that the children will then, they know mom will do this, dad will do that, and they'll actually work them against each other and manipulate. So I think there's kind of room.
Yeah, I think I see what you're saying. Like there's a middle path here, right? Like we don't want to say, oh, I completely agree with this path or whatever, when we actually don't, because that's lying, and that leads our kids not to trust us. But yeah, like there's a middle path between that and not supporting each other. Like, exactly. Like there are conversations that we can have privately and things like that. So, yeah,
it's just funny. I actually use the term united front when I was saying so but I totally understand what you're saying, because it's you want the children to appreciate that the parents might be different, and that's okay. And we celebrate that. And like my kids know, they'll be like, oh, well, mom would never want to do that, or but then they'll say, oh, or mom will be totally into this, but dad, you won't, And so there is an appreciation, but when it comes to things like discipline and rules and those kinds of elements, we try to really support. So even if, my wife will say something in that moment, I will support her and say, hey, well, that's what your mom's deciding to do.
Yeah.
And that's how I'll leave it. And then he'll have a discussion, whatever you want to call it, afterwards. Like, how could you make that decision? But it goes back to that same thing about the appreciation for the way things are being done. And the fact that we don't make decisions the same way. We don't, you have to, I think, agree in general on how you parent, but there are going to be differences. There are going to be differences, and it's just how do you handle those situations?
So if a woman's encouraging dad to like be more involved, we're going to be like encouraging that positive reinforcement. We know all about that. And then there's like what I kind of think what you're pointing to with this idea of there's more than one way to do something is like, let's accept our partner for who that person is rather than trying to necessarily shape and mold things. And what I always say to people is that as you start to like learn new skills and new language, your partner is going to be like, well, what are you doing? Right. They're going to start to get curious and start to get interested. And I've seen that happen again and again and again and again and again. Right. So I think that That really happens. What are some of the skills that dads need? Say you have a dad who's like starting to have like a toddler, starting to move out of that how do I diaper phase and into that I'm actually like parenting my child phase. What are some of the skills that dads are needing that they may not even realize?
So a couple of things are probably, really stand out for me. The one is to not take things personally.
Mm.
We men have a big ego often. I'll just admit it. Maybe other men don't. Um, so we often take things personally, and whether it's from our spouse or if it's from the child, but like a 3-year-old is not trying to ruin your life. Like they're just not.
Yeah.
They're trying to just understand what the heck is going on right now. It may feel like they're trying to ruin your life, but they're not. And so even whether it's talking back, whether it's just defiance, whether it's like not listening, it doesn't matter. They just don't know what to do, and they're learning. And so one of the biggest things is just not taking that personal and really taking the step back and be like, okay, this is a toddler. They have no idea what they're talking about. They have no idea what they're doing. Let me use that reference,
Brains like completely undeveloped here.
Totally. Yeah. We're using a 30 to 50-year-old brain, whatever your age. It's like, we're using our brains that's fully developed into this little thing that has no idea. So that's a big one. It's just not taking it personally. The other is what I said before about probably the biggest change for me in parenting and in my relationship is empathy. And I think men in general aren't very empathetic. We don't often put ourselves in the place of our spouse or our children. And so I teach this a lot. And it's basically like, if your 3-year-old is crying, you put yourself in the place of the 3-year-old. Instead of looking at it from your grown man perspective, you're looking at it and going, wow, you know what? If I was 3 years old and I was tired, I'd probably want a cookie too, and would probably complain also. And when you're empathetic, your response totally changes. You're like, oh, okay, you know what? Let me try this. Or, you're typically softer, you're typically more understanding, and that's what the child often needs, is like for you to just understand this is scary, or this is crazy, or I don't like this, or this is not my routine, or, whatever it is. And so empathy has been a game changer for me. I mean, like I was in a self-development class years ago, and we started talking about empathy, and I'm like, I can't believe that I've like missed out on this whole thing. Like this would have saved me years of discussions with my wife, of arguments and such. And then with the little toddler, same thing. Like, wow, they're struggling right now. Like they're trying to communicate, or they're upset, or like this has nothing to do with me. It's not my, they're not trying to piss me off. And then 2, this thing doesn't really know. So those are, those are really big ones.
And that's simply more effective, to say, to point to where you were talking about before, because it's just so much more effective to address a kid who's struggling and whatever with some softness, some kindness, some compassion. It's just going to get you out the door faster, or get you into bed faster, or all of those things. It's much more effective too.
Yeah.
The losing it doesn't work so well.
No. And then the other, which is kind of related to all of them, is patience. I mean, just, practice your patience. And I, by nature, was not a patient guy. I'm just not. Like I move fast, talk fast, do things fast. Like everything is fast. So patience was not my best quality. And as much as I meditate and as much as I try to slow things down, I had to learn patience. And my wife is tremendously more patient than I am. And so just looking at how she does some things, the cues that she takes, and me slowing down, I've just had to learn to be more patient with my children. And as a result, that's helped me. I'm not in such a hurry to do X, Y, Z, or, why didn't they, I just told them 3 minutes ago to do this. Why hasn't it been done? literally those kinds of things would come out of my mouth.
Oh,
And
I'm so with you, Jason, because
yeah,
I'm that person in my relationship with my husband. I'm that person. I have to check myself. Like, all right, my kids are not robots. Like, I have to allow them some time. But yeah,
yeah.
it's like,
No, and a story I tell is I had learned this like idea and like practicing this patience, and I was with my son at the time, and he was probably 2 or something, in the bath, and I said, "Okay, get out," and he didn't get out, and I had learned about the patience stuff, and he said, "Just wait a little bit longer." I said, and normally I would have said, "Get out now, like we need to," after a couple times. So I just sat there. And literally 10 seconds later, he got up and was ready to get out. And I said, so he heard me. Like, he totally heard me. He knew he needs to get out of the bath. And granted, sometimes that doesn't work, but we've done the same routine every time. And he knew it was just that I wasn't patient enough. And so I lose my patience too quickly. And so I just now wait longer to lose my patience.
I
You know?
bet that was the longest 10 seconds.
Oh, yeah, I remember, I was like, okay, we're like, get out, we're getting out of the bath, and then just like tapping the fingers, and then just waiting and waiting and waiting. Yeah, and even with my wife, who, in the past, if we're getting ready for something, I'd be like, okay, let's go. I'm in the car, ready to go. I would, come back and be like, hey, it's time to go. Like, we're going to be late. She knows now, and I've learned, I did this once. We were going to a wedding and I didn't say anything. I just sat. I think I like picked up a book or something. She came into the car and just gave me the best kiss ever and just said, thank you for not saying anything. And it was like, so she knows positive reinforcement. Like, you better believe the next time we had to go somewhere, I was waiting, and I was waiting patient. I was waiting for the kiss again. And it was like, oh, the same result. Like, she knows she needs to hurry. It's just, what did that help me getting all crazy about it? And so those kinds of things have happened over time in practice. And, I'm not a, spiritual meditation calm guru, but I'm definitely a lot more patient with those kinds of things than I've ever been. So it's helped me.
Stay tuned for more Mindful Mama podcast right after this break. Even though I have a dog now, I've always been a cat person. I grew up with cats, snuggling with them when I was little, and now I have 2 wonderful kitties, Boots and Amber, and I want what's best for them. I love my cats, and part of love is keeping tabs on my cat's health, right? Because nothing is more important than their health and well-being. That's why I'm thrilled that Pretty Litter is a sponsor of the Mindful Mama podcast. Pretty Litter is the best litter for your cat. It actually changes colors to help you detect early signs of potential illness, including urinary tract infections and kidney issues, which are a really big deal. Litter box cleanup is also so easy with Pretty Litter. Its ultra absorbent crystals trap odor instantly and lasts up to a month. Plus, it is safer for your cat and for the whole household. So many conventional litters, they contain irritants that can aggravate allergies and asthma, but Pretty Litter has this super light crystal base that really minimizes the mess and dust. The part I like best is that it arrives safely at my door in a small, lightweight bag. Shipping is free. I never have to worry about storing like huge, bulky containers and putting out my bag trying to carry these giant things. Love is putting your cat's health first with Pretty Litter. Do what I did and make the switch today by visiting prettylitter.com and use the promo code HUNTER for 20% off your first order. That's prettylitter.com, promo code HUNTER for 20% off. prettylitter.com, link is right in the notes wherever you're listening to this. Promo code HUNTER. You have been practicing your patience. You've been, working on your empathy and connect, and all those things will help you connect with your children more deeply. What would you say has been some of the payoff from doing some of this work?
Well, the payoff for sure has been also that my children now have these skills. And so I'd say probably that's the best payoff is, I'd love to feel like my children are, pretty emotionally intelligent and like they understand the concepts of empathy and gratitude because I teach them. And so I try to practice what I preach. And so we talk about those things, and we talk about how important these things are. And so, and I see like my son even having some of the same sort of tendencies that I do of, sort of a little bit high strung, a little bit, type A, but then understanding that, hey, there's some things I got to do. I got to be able to slow down. I have to do that. So, to answer your question, I think it's just seeing these kinds of skills in my children that is going to benefit them. I just learned way too late. They're learning this stuff early. So, I mean, I could have maybe avoided a little bit of gray hair. But they're hopefully, they're learning it a lot earlier than I did. So,
how old are they now?
Son is 12 and daughter's 10.
I have an 11-year-old and 14-year-old.
Yeah.
So I imagine some of your hope is that you're kind of avoid some like I hate you strife. I want to run away from home, teen rebellion stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready for it. I've got my sort of skills. I'm honing in those skills of the teen years, and I've been learning and practicing and studying and and accepting of the fact that I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. But we have really good communication, and so, and also understanding that like they're okay, they're allowed to mess up too, and my kids will, even especially my son will say like, hey, you think it's pretty crazy now, wait in a couple of years till I'm a full-fledged teen, like, so he's even aware a little bit, the chaos that ensues, with that and the hormones. And so we talk pretty openly. We've just had that. And, my wife's really good about that too. And so, she's a nurse. So those kinds of things, she's fine, any sort of the physical and the emotional, like I do a lot of the emotional stuff. She does a lot of the physical stuff. And so it works really well. It's a good combo.
Is there anything, Jason, that we didn't cover that you think would be important for maybe, I'm picturing like the dads of the mindful parenting members listening to this episode and things that you may want them to hear.
I think just start small. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. Just taking a small step is a big deal, and that may be just practicing, just empathy or just practicing a little more gratitude. I sometimes when we do, whether it's self-improvement, mindfulness, doesn't matter, any of these things where we're looking to educate ourselves, it often feels overwhelming. Like you can do too much of it. And what happens is I think people get paralyzed in the consistent need to have to improve.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like I'm going to too many self-help classes, like I overdo it. And I think it's just take one small step, do one thing, focus on one thing and evaluate that. And for me, those kinds of things have helped where like, I know I can't do everything all the time. And so I kind of go in waves of the things that I focus on. Like right now I'm responsible for my own emotions phase. Mm-hmm. And so that's top of mind for me of just, I'm responsible for my own emotions. So I take these sort of these nuggets and I just focus on one thing at a time because that's, my brain, it's already full with too many other things.
Yeah. That's our capacity. Yeah.
So simple, simple. I think it's more likely that it's going to happen with simplicity. And so if it is the mom who's trying to convince the dad, then like, just try to do one thing, like have him involved in one thing or, try to just focus on a simple task or a simple element. And I think that's probably an easier way to approach it.
Well, Jason, I really appreciate you coming and sharing your perspective here on the Mindful Mama
For sure.
podcast. Where can people find out more about you and what you're doing?
Yeah, the website, daduniversity.com, is probably the best place. That has all the links to everything. And my biggest, I put out videos every week on YouTube. And so that's the place where most people see me or know of me. So, but they can find me everywhere. Yeah.
All right. Find Jason there. And there will be clips from this episode for you audio listeners on YouTube at the Mindful Mama Mentor YouTube channel. So they're there. Jason, thank you.
No, thank you
so very much. I appreciate your perspective, your energy, your dedication for helping to make things better for the next generation. I'm so glad that you're out there doing that work and in the voice that people can, resonate with and hear. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity to spread that. I appreciate that.
I love what Jason says about starting small, about showing gratitude, and how that's just simply effective. It's like, yes, we just have such habits of being unskillful. I mean, man, I still have some unskillful habits for sure. As I was, working last week, I was thinking about mindful parenting and what we do. And it really is like learning a new language. Like this whole thing is like learning a new language. It's hard to learn a new language from a book. It's hard to learn a new language on your own. It really is something that you need to practice again and again and in context and ask questions and all those things. Like if we get transferred by our business to another country where they don't speak English, we're gonna like learn a new language, right? Like that's what we need to do. And, with parenting, if we grew up with all the authoritarian, unskillful, ineffective language, like this is totally a new language that we need to learn. I mean, for me, it's completely a new language. And so I'm always learning. And one of the ways I learn is by teaching. And just want to make a quick announcement here at the end too, that if you are a parent coach, if you are a teacher or a therapist or something likewise, and you are interested in the Mindful Parenting Teacher Training Program, we may have a couple of spots left. That's at mindfulparentingcourse.com/teach, mindfulparentingcourse.com/teach. Check it out, see if there's some spots left, and apply if you think it might be right for you. And then that's it, I guess. So great to connect with you again here, my friend. Here in Delaware, we're going into summer and it's into pool time and open time, kids wanting to be driven to the library time. The library is open. Yay! Again, finally we can browse again. Okay, so Delaware did a lot of things right during the pandemic. I mean, really, like we had super easy free testing and, really easy to get free vaccines. Like everything was great. Been very impressed. But the libraries, oh my God, why did the libraries not open for browsing until like June 2021? Like that's kind of nuts. And I worry for the kids, have not been able to go to the libraries for so long. And that was been really hard for my kids. I mean, it drives them to screen time because they don't even have any books. They can't get any new books. It's so frustrating. All right, so that's my mini kvetch here. Sorry. Hey, listen, if you enjoyed this episode, please let me know. Take a screenshot of it. Tag me on Instagram at Mindful Mama Mentor. Let me know what your takeaways are. Don't be so silent on the other end. I want feedback too. It makes such a big difference. So please, please, please. I love your feedback. I love your reviews. They make this whole labor love worthwhile. So please, please let me know. And I wish you a beautiful week. And if you're going into summer here in the Northern Hemisphere, I hope you have some sunny, nice, beautiful days. And if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, I wish you some refreshingly cool and lovely days. All right. Have a lovely week, my friend. Thank you so much. Namaste.
I'd say definitely do it. It's really helpful. It will change your relationship with your kids for the better. It will help you communicate better. And just, I'd say communicate better as a person, as a wife, as a spouse. It's been really a positive influence in our lives. So definitely do it.
I'd say definitely do it. It's so worth it. The money really is inconsequential when you get so much benefit from being a better parent to your children and feeling like you're connecting more with them and not feeling like you're yelling all the time or you're like, why isn't things working? I would say definitely do it. It's so worth it. It'll change you.
No matter what age someone's child is, it's a great opportunity for personal growth and it's a great investment in someone's family. I'm very thankful I had this.
You can continue in your old habits that aren't working, or you can learn some new tools and gain some perspective to shift everything in your parenting.
Are you frustrated by parenting? Do you listen to the experts and try all the tips and strategies, but you're just not seeing the results that you want? Or are you lost as to where to start? Does it all seem so overwhelming with too much to learn? Are you yearning for a community of people who get it, who also don't want to threaten and punish to create cooperation? Hi, I'm Hunter Clarke-Fields, and if you answered yes to any of these questions, I want you to seriously consider the Mindful Parenting membership. You'll be joining hundreds of members who have discovered the path of mindful parenting and now have confidence and clarity in their parenting. This isn't just another parenting class. This is an opportunity to really discover your unique, lasting relationship, not only with your children, but with yourself. It will translate into lasting, connected relationships, not only with your children, but your partner too. Let me change your life. Go to mindfulparentingcourse.com to add your name to the waitlist, so you will be the first to be notified when I open the membership for enrollment. I look forward to seeing you on the inside. mindfulparentingcourse.com.